Alright, so eventually you're going to get to the point where you have everything soldered in over on this side of the board, and hopefully you've gotten a good grade, 9s and 10s, to prove that you know what you're doing when it comes to soldering and that you're using the right technique. But this section of this board right here, section D, we're actually going to make a functioning circuit. So in other words, everything over here, all the parts were just isolated, they weren't actually hooked up to anything. Where here, underneath, the pads are connected by tracks, which are the lines that connect the pads together. So, in other words, the electricity is going to be able to flow through that copper and complete the circuit. So you're going to need to know a couple things to be able to put this together. First off, you're going to have to move this out of the way again. You're going to have to be able to look at this paper that comes with it to be able to understand where the different parts go. So right here is going to be your biggest tool to understanding where the different parts go. As you see, it has every single thing labeled. It's got R1, C1, Q1, Q2, R3, C2, R2, and L1 and 2. So those are all the different parts that we're going to need, as well as the battery snap connecting in here. So this has this very well labeled in the sense that each, well, not every single part, but a lot of these different parts have polarity. In other words, they have a positive and a negative side, and you have to put them in the right holes or else it won't work. So for example, each of the LEDs at the top, each have a positive and negative. So cathode up here, that stands for positive. So you're going to want the positive to go towards the top of the board. So if we look at our board then, right now I have it switched upside down, so really it would look like this to match up with the board, but this would be the negative, and then the bottom down here would be the positive. So that's going to be right here, and this one right here is the one right over here. So the positive side of the LED is going to go towards the edge of the board. Alright, so when you get your pack of stuff and you look at it, you have two LEDs. There's a yellow one. Open it up. You got your red one and your yellow one. It doesn't matter which holes you put them in, they're interchangeable. But if you look at them, there's a long lead and a short lead. The long one's going to be the cathode and the short one's the anode. So you're going to want to make sure you put them in right the first time, because when you cut off these, you won't be able to tell which one's the positive and which the negative. So when you look at the board, we said the cathode goes towards the edge of the board. That's the long one. You'd stick it in just like this. Alright, and like I said, it doesn't matter which side is red and which side is yellow, but you just want to make sure you're putting them in the right holes down here. So we have that lined up right there. And if you continue looking at this, what else has polarity? Well, we got C1, that has polarity, and C2 has polarity, so we'd want to make sure we put those in right. So if you go down, C1 and C2 are these right here, are capacitors. And the way you tell if these are negative or not is that you look down the side that has the gray stripe on it, and right there, that's supposed to be a negative sign. So it's symbolizing that this is the negative side, and once again, if I rip this out, it will also have a shorter lead, which stands for the negative. So the longer one's positive. So that's how you tell this capacitor. You're going to have to be able to read, there's two different types of resistors on this board. Well, there's three different ones. Two of them are the exact same. But if you look at down here, it tells us what they are. So R1 and R2 are the 82K ohms resistor, and R3 is 620 ohms resistor. So what you're going to have to do is remember our handy dandy color code and look it up. So you have to understand what 82 is. So you'd go to 8, that's gray, and then 2 is red. So that means the 82K one's going to start with gray and red, and then figure out the multiplication band after that. So you're going to have to understand how that works to figure out what it is. So once you figure that out, you just put, where R1 and R2 go. You look over here, there's R1 and there's R2. So you have to kind of understand and read these different components of information to understand where it goes on this, because this matches up exactly with our board right here. So that is that, but there's also another piece on here that matters how you put it in. We have our two, let's pull it out, different transistors. So our transistors, it's not focusing too well on me, but our transistors matter which way they face. They have 3 different legs instead of just 2. And if you look at it from the top half going down, it's kind of half of a circle. So it matters if you have the half of a circle facing, still not quite focusing, but it matters which side is facing. Each leg serves a different purpose. So if you look at the schematic or the drawing right here of it, you see how the Q1 has the flat side of it facing like this, and Q2 has it facing the other way. So you want to make sure you insert them into the board the exact same way. So when you go to put them in these holes, it's going to matter how you stick them in. One should be facing this way, one should be facing that way. So you're going to want to pay close attention to that. So those are just kind of some helpful hints to get you started. Once again, you have your positive and negative leads of your battery lead. Red is always positive, black is always negative. You want to make sure you match those up to where they go as well. Eventually, we're going to learn how to read one of these, which is the official schematic, to really understand what this is going on in here, to be able to use this to wire everything in here, so we don't just have to look at a picture that doesn't have the tracks running underneath, and this is kind of pretty confusing. They could have done a way better job of setting this up for us, but we're going to work with what they got. So always, before you solder something in, I wouldn't trim off the leads right away on this one, just because you might be wrong, or just come and have me check what you're doing before you do it. That way you make sure you're doing things correctly. But this section of the circuit will be graded, so try to make sure that you put your time and effort into this one as much as you can. Well, the other side was just practice. This one actually really matters. And hopefully, if you do everything right, when you plug a battery into it, it will light up and start flashing. So that's our goal, and that's what we're going to try to have done.